let's dive right into today's analysis, where we are unpacking an absolutely fascinating and honestly terrifying thought experiment. We're looking at a scenario involving an omnipotent ocean that can literally physically materialize your deepest desires. I mean, sounds like a total utopia, right? Instant gratification. But as we'll see from the source text, this premise is actually the exact blueprint for the total destruction of reality itself. So let's break down exactly how this happens, step by step. You know, we humans are incredibly complex creatures, and our minds are just completely full of contradictions. I mean, you might want to eat an entire cake, but simultaneously desire to stay perfectly fit. Or you might crave deep, meaningful connection with others, but also demand total isolation. Now, I want you to imagine those opposing wants physically manifesting in the exact same space at the exact same millisecond. Not just as passing thoughts, but as solid physical realities actively competing for existence. What actually happens when the world is forced to hold two mutually exclusive truths at the exact same time? Let's look at Section 1, Paradox of Conflicting Desires, the trigger. Here is the exact roadmap for how this existential collapse unfolds. We start with our normal, stable physical world, and then rapidly descend through 4 distinct phases. First, a sudden loss of stability. Second, the complete erasure of boundaries. Third, a plunge into endless visions. And finally, the total absorption of truth itself. Moving right along to Section 2, loss of world stability, the fabric tears. Which brings us right into Section 3, illusions versus reality, the blurring lines. Okay, so picture this. On one side, we have the objective world. This is the world governed by physics, logical consistency, and shared human experience. But on the other side, we have subjective visions. These are our deeply personal, totally chaotic desires. Because this ocean entity forces these fundamentally incompatible things to exist in the exact same space, the very fabric of reality literally begins to tear. The real danger here isn't just that these crazy visions exist, it's the unbearable massive friction of the subjective mind actively warring with objective physics. And the climax of all that tension is stark. The boundary between the objective world and subjective visions is completely erased. Think about that for a second. The wall separating your darkest nightmares from the waking world is utterly annihilated. Subjective creations just start pouring into the physical world without any filter whatsoever. And because those desires mutually exclude one another, reality just cannot hold a shape. We literally plunge into an abyss. The world completely transforms into a whirlpool of endless, shifting hallucinations. 1 millisecond, the physical environment is one way, and the next, it is entirely different. It becomes this cascading, totally unstoppable flow of madness replacing the physical world. And that leads us to our final section. Section 4, the end of objective truth, the final plunge. Now, to really grasp the gravity of this final plunge, we've got to take a second to define what we mean by truth. In this context, truth is an objective category, relying entirely on logic and laws of constancy. It's the simple fact that gravity works, or that a physical object cannot be in 2 completely different places at once. Objective truth absolutely requires a baseline of stable rules. So here is the absolute kicker. When totally contradictory images materialize at the same time, that fundamental baseline of logical rules is completely destroyed. Therefore, truth itself ceases to exist. It is completely and permanently absorbed by the chaotic creations of the human mind. There is literally no reality left to even be considered true. The source text sums this up with this incredibly dark, chilling phrase: reality becomes an unmanageable nightmare. The physical world completely abandons all logic. It's just trapped in this perpetual, terrifying state of flux, where the hidden contradictions of the mind are what actually dictate a broken universe. It really leaves us with this profound reflection on just how fragile our existence is. Our minds are practically built on contradiction, yet we rely entirely on the absolute constancy of the physical world just to keep us sane. So, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. If the invisible contradictions of your own mind were suddenly given the ultimate power to rewrite the world around you, would anything at all remain true? Stay curious, everyone, and keep questioning the reality around you.
You know those random, fleeting desires? Or those sudden, completely irrational spikes of panic? Normally, thank goodness, those stay locked safely inside your head. But today, we're jumping right into this explainer to look at a genuinely terrifying anomaly. We're talking about a massive, sentient ocean that completely fails to distinguish between what we desire and what is actual, objective truth. It's a really deep dive into an environment where your subconscious doesn't just influence your mood, it literally builds your physical surroundings.
Okay, let's dive into this. The entire catastrophe really boils down to this one chilling idea: the complete disappearance of the boundary between reality and dreams. I mean, we rely on that boundary every single day just to stay sane, right? It is the firewall between our messy, chaotic internal world and the stable physical world. But in the presence of this ocean, that firewall is just utterly deleted. Dreams stop being something you wake up from, and they become the very fabric of the world you're walking around in.
Section 1. The boundary dissolves.
Section 2. Materializing the subconscious.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it breaks down the anatomy of this catastrophe. It all starts because the ocean isn't just passively reflecting our thoughts. No, it acts as an unstoppable 3D printer for human psychology, and it's completely indiscriminate. Think about it. The average person has around 6,000 thoughts a day, and let's be honest, a lot of them are deeply intrusive. The ocean doesn't filter a single one. If someone is experiencing profound grief, really yearning for a deceased loved one, the ocean physically synthesizes a living, breathing copy of them. On the flip side, a deep, dark fear of a monster, that manifests into a literal, physical predator right in front of them. Viscerally imagine your own deepest grief or darkest fear materializing before your eyes in this exact moment. It's absolutely wild. The ocean basically turns your mind into a loaded weapon, and it doesn't care where it's pointed.
Section 3. The emotion multiplier.
So once these things are pulled from your subconscious, they're governed by a really terrifying dynamic. Let's walk through it. First, a human emotion is felt. Second, as that emotion intensifies in the mind, say your fear spikes as the manifested monster gets closer, the ocean responds in real time. In step 3, it uses your escalating panic as an anchor, which actually gives the monster a denser, stronger physical reality. You are literally powering the very thing that terrifies you. Your own escalating panic gives the monster its armor. How crazy is that?
Section 4. Reality loses control.
Okay, zoom out for a second. What happens when you introduce literally billions of chaotic minds to this environment all at the same time? System failure. Absolute system failure. Human desires are fundamentally contradictory. I might want sunshine today while you desperately want rain for your garden. We crave love, but we actively push people away. By attempting to mathematically process and physicalize billions of conflicting commands all at once, the ocean simply loses control over the world's physical stability. It is the ultimate domino effect. Our internal contradictions completely shatter the external laws of physics.
Section 5. The rebellion of echoes.
So, the crucial point is that as physical stability collapses, we enter a phase of pure psychological horror, the creation of echoes. Now, these aren't just mere copies of people created by dreams. They become entirely self-aware. They actually recognize their own artificial nature, and they actively refuse to disappear. Imagine an artificial, dream-born copy of your worst past mistake or a lost loved one looking you dead in the eye and demanding its right to exist. It threatens the natural order of life itself and injects just an unparalleled level of dread into the surviving human population.
Section 6. A world swallowed by illusions.
Look, if this process isn't halted, the trajectory is absolute. The world plunges into an unstoppable state of endless, uncontrolled visions. And this isn't just some temporary hallucination. It is an existential replacement. Objective truth, that shared reality we all agree on, the literal ground beneath our feet, is permanently consumed by the chaotic offspring of the human mind. The universe effectively becomes a solipsistic nightmare, just swallowed whole by our own imagination.
We have explored the terrifying mechanics of an environment that cannot separate truth from desire, and how our own minds can literally become the architects of a physical apocalypse. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want you to ask yourself a question. Knowing that this ocean amplifies your absolute strongest emotions and materializes your deepest subconscious thoughts, if the ocean reflected your mind right now, at this exact moment, what reality would you be trapped in? Think about that. Thank you for joining me, and keep questioning the reality around you.